Well, this week, the U.S. Constitution turns 232 years old. But as we honor our country's cornerstone document, we're asking the question, how would our founding fathers feel about the state of politics today? Here to help us answer that question is the president of Citizens for Self-Governance, Mark Meckler. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you this morning.
What in the world would they think about how things are today?
I think they'd be really shocked, and primarily because they designed a government with the federal government intended to have small, limited, enumerated powers, and the rest of the powers left to us and the states. Today, that's flipped on its head. Most of the powers in D.C., and people really don't like it as well.
And why do you think that is the case?
Well, primarily it's because of overreach of the courts, especially over the last 115 years. They've expanded a lot of things that were in the Constitution, given massive powers to the federal government through the courts, not something that the founders in any way anticipated, actually.
Yeah. What do you think about in terms of the 2020 candidates that we've heard from so far on the Democratic side?
Most of them seem at best uninterested in the Constitution. We saw this in the last debate around guns, people calling for an executive order. Joe Biden, the voice of reason, saying, hey, we have a Constitution. And you had Kamala Harris directly dismiss him for saying that, saying, no, don't say no, just say, yes, we can, despite the Constitution. So they don't seem to pay much attention.
And how important is it, though?
Well, I think it's fundamentally important. You know, we see Americans actually care about this. They're connected to our founding values. They believe in that document as the foundation of America. And to see an entire party now dismissing that document as irrelevant at best, I think that's a problem for the Democrats.
Yeah, it's scary as well for our nation. One kind of good news in all of this, we can take a look at this poll. Civic literacy in America seems to have increased. And you take a look between 2018 and 2019, an increase of 7 percentage points in the number of people who can actually name all 3 branches of government. It's still very low at 39%, but yeah, it's increasing.
I think our schools are failing us, but what's happening is in the modern era, we've got so much talk now about the Constitution. You mentioned the Kavanaugh hearings, so we see people paying attention to the branches of government more than they have in recent history.
Do you think that social media is aiding in that, or is it hurting?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It depends on what people are paying attention to in social media. I do know, and you and I were talking about this off air, a lot of people carrying around pocket constitutions today. I think that's helping.
Yeah. So what do we need to do in terms of the next generation and teaching them the importance of the Constitution?
Well, I think there are a couple things. I think the main thing is we ought to be teaching it in schools. And this is something we used to do. I actually have a copy of an 1805 Constitution printed by the government of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth. All kids were required to read the Declaration, the Constitution, and Washington's farewell speech. That's how you inculcate this into your population.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're not required to do any of that anymore.
No, they're not. And again, I think it's up to us, though. I mean, we can't just look to the schools, we as individuals. I think another thing we can do is we can personally push for the reforms that are necessary. My organization is doing that by calling a convention of states. We've got 15 states that have already made application for that. 4 million people involved. It's the largest constitutional education project in American history.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Go to conventionofstates.com. Press the button, sign the petition. More importantly, get 10 of your friends to do the same. When you sign the petition, then that sends a letter to your state legislator. You go on the list in their district as a supporter. We deliver those lists to the state legislators. It means something to them.